Hello, everyone. This is Mike, and welcome to session 6 of our Cognos report training. And in today's session, we're going to look at visualizations, charts, setting up a drag and drop report, and then a SQL based report to leverage the visualizations in Cognos. So let's start the process. Let's go to New, click on Report, click on Create, and let's connect to a data source. We're going to do inventory again, so I'm going to go to packages, select inventory, click open. All right, and gives us our inventory data mart, and I'm going to start the process with a table. Again, trying to create a layout so that it's customizable and allows me to place objects within the report where I want them and not where Cognos wants them. Okay, so we're going to do one column and two rows. Click OK. We're not going to maximize the width. I want to control the width myself. And then I'm going to drop a list object in the bottom cell. Click OK on the default naming conventions, and then grab a visualization. Drag the visualization up to the first row of the table. And let's take a look at what we got here. So in Cognos, you have a number of objects that you can leverage for graphical presentations. All right. When you look at visualizations, they're very limited. They're powerful and they're interactive, but they're very limited. You cannot customize the chart as much or the visualization as much as you can a chart. All right, so let's use charts. Those are not the legacy visualizations, not earlier versions of visualizations. These are the original charts that were released with Cognos 8, and we used that a long time ago with OCI. And now we're in DII, and we're going to stick with that functionality because it is a lot easier to customize and leverage the properties that are associated with each chart. So click on charts, and then I want to grab a line chart. All right, let's use the default clustered line, and I'll explain what clustered means, what stacked means, and what 100% stacked means. We'll look at all those different presentation parameters that we'll definitely look into later on in the subsequent sessions. So let's drag this up. Let's place it in the first row of the table. And what I like to do is separate these a little bit by using padding. Padding is like margins, but it does just creates padding within a cell. So I'm going to use a 10 pixel padding. And you can see that it moves the list object down a little bit below the chart itself. All right, now what I want to use is drag and drop first. Okay, so we're going to kind of focus on the stuff we've used before and go to storage assets. Let's select storage and let's grab the storage name, hold the control key, and grab family, manufacturer, and model. I don't really want to use anything else at this point. And then let's grab some capacity metrics. So within storage, you have storage pool. You saw that before in the previous session. Let's grab total allocated and total used. Now, what you can do here, you can combine report objects within the same queries. Okay, so right now you have query 2, that was the default query with the visualization or chart, and then you have query 1. That was the default query for the list. So what I can do is come over here and change the chart to query 1. Then I can use the objects, the data items that I actually added to the list below in the same fashion. So I'm going to take storage name and drop it in the x-axis so that all the metrics that I use from this point on are going to show up for each storage name. Okay. Let's grab allocated and used, drag those over to the chart itself. And we really don't have to do anything yet, but I want to show you what it looks like by default without making any change, any parameter or property changes to the object itself. So let's run that and take a look at what is available for us. Okay, so here is the raw data, and this is the chart. Now look at how hard it is to read. You can see that, yeah, we have lines there. We can see what the capacity is. So what we can do is manipulate this a lot to basically, show it on the screen so that it's much easier to use, but also uses the right objects within the chart. Right now we're using a line chart. Probably not the best choice, right? But I wanted to show you, you start somewhere and you kind of manipulate it in so that it meets your business use case and makes your customer very pleased with the result. So let's go back to the report itself. Just click on, you get two tabs. This is the actual tab that shows you the runtime version. This is the editable version of the report. Okay, so let's go back into our charts. First things first, I want to change the size of the chart. I want to make it a little bit bigger. I'm going to make it 1200 pixels wide and 500 pixels in height. Okay, that's first thing. And next thing, I can change the chart just by clicking on the series or the primary axis, which is the y-axis, and come over here and change your chart type to a bar. Okay, and we'll call it clustered. Now, clustered means that it will show the same metrics in the same columns, or it'll show the metrics together side by side. Those are the different types of clustered results you'll get based on the type of chart that you use. Okay, so when we run this, it's going to be a lot easier to read. All right, it's a lot bigger. Okay, now the names are kind of large, and you've got different font types. But notice that this is how a cluster chart works within the bar framework, and you'll have the different capacities: total used and total allocated in blue and gold. And you can see what the representation is. Now, a few things are wrong here. First of all, this is really too large and not very pleasing to look at. So what we can do is come over here, click on the label, and you can actually change the label size. So under here, I'll go to font, and you can change it to 8 point, and do the same thing for your axis titles. You can change the font to 8 point. All right, and do that here as well. Change the font. Actually, this one right here, I believe you cannot change. You have to actually change it here. All right, so I think that'll work. Let's go here. Click on Run. And then it gets a little bit better. This is smaller. The chart is a little bit easier to read. And you can manipulate this based on, what you're really trying to accomplish, right? So here, you see really big spikes in capacity with some of the storage devices. And what I can do is I can change the way that appears by using an axis range value called logarithmic. All right, if I use logarithmic scale, watch the difference. All right, and you do that by just clicking on the axis, and you can see it's a lot different, right? So what you see is the logarithmic values that are associated with the y-axis, basically going in increments like 1 to 10, 10 to 100. It's like every increment is 10 times more than the other one, right? So that's a logarithmic scale. It's a little bit easier to see, right? And a lot of times you may not want to see all of the storage arrays. You may just want to see a few of the storage arrays, like a top 5, top 10, and by capacity. And there's ways to do that as well. We'll get into it. I'm not going to do it right now. But let's focus on just presentation right now, the layout of the report and how it can be professionalized. You want to add a good symmetrical coat to it, in other words, and you want it to look very professional. So what I can do here is show you a few ways to do that. For instance, I'm going to drop another table here. I'm not going to maximize width. I'm going to use 1 column, 2 rows again. Actually, let's do 3 rows. And then I'm going to drop it down here. First things first, I want to create a header. Okay, so here I can actually use different colors, and I can come up and say if I want to use a NetApp style header like that. Okay, and then below I can actually give it a title. So I'm going to come here and I'm going to show you, let's see, make sure we can drop it in there. If you can't, just kind of come out and drop it in. There you go. This report's going to be called storage capacity. All right, let's just call it storage capacity. And then we can change how this appears. Let's drop that there. I can get rid of that column. I don't need it. And then I want to change basically how this is going to look. So I could come here where the 3 dots are associated with the table and then change that size as well. So I'm going to use 1500 pixels wide. That's all I care about right now. I'm going to do the same thing for here. What you can do if you change, here's a couple of things. I want to back up. So right here, let's go back to the original. I can actually click on the page, go to page, and change the size of the page. Now watch this is a good best practice. And I'm going to change it to 1500 pixels right here. Okay, so that change, you don't see anything happen, but it did work. Then I can come over here, click on the table inside of that box and then change the size and overflow to 100%. And that makes it a little bit easier. And I could do the same for the box itself, change that to 100%. And then everything is relative to that 100%, right? So now I can take my two objects, place them in that box. I can change the size of this row. I'm going to change it to 24. Oop, too big. 24 actually pixels high. There we go. That's better. And then you want to change the font size of the title name. All right, so I'm going to change it to Arial. Let's go to a 24 point font size and change the color to slightly black. Okay, there we go. And there is the title of the report. And then you can run the report. Okay, and that gives you the beginnings of our professional layout. Okay, now a couple of things. What we want to do is add some best practices when we're dealing with data infrastructure insights. I want to say powered by data infrastructure insights. Okay, and that is our label for the report. Now I want to change that font as well. I'm going to go over to properties. I'm going to go to bold, change that to 14 point. Let's make it Arial, and I want it to be white. Okay, there you go. So now it's powered by infrastructure insights. If the blue is too dark, you can tone that down a little bit. You either go here to the presets, or you can actually come in here and just play around with the settings here just by dragging the mouse around the color spectrum, and then you can change that to a lighter color, a little bit more nappy. Okay, and then you have the makings of your layout. Okay, so this looks a lot better. There you go. Now another thing I like to do is give it a border. I always like to have borders. So come over here to your properties, select the silver color, click on all borders, and then when you select OK, it actually will paint the border. There we go. Looks a lot better. Okay. Another thing we like to do with inside the primary box. Okay, I want to set some sizing, so I'll go, actually no, I want to set some padding, it's better. So I'll do a 10 pixel at the bottom, 10 pixel to the left, and then click OK. And then you can see it gets a little bit easier to see within that framework. There you go, that's a lot better. Okay, and a lot of times you can add, different settings depending on what your customer wants to see and how they want to lay it out. All right, so that's another way to look at it. Okay, now a couple of things to note. By default, your list box will only show 20 rows at a time. If you want to change that and show all of the rows, come over here, actually click on the three dots, and then come over here to properties. You will see rows per page. Type in 500 or 5,000, whatever you want to put in there. And then when you run the report again, it'll actually show you everything in one fell swoop, one page. Okay. There are ways to manipulate that a different way. You can get a block object. All right, and if you want to, let's just drop that in. Actually, no, I want to take that out. Let's grab the block object, drop it down here. All right, I want to take my list and place it inside the block object. All right, however, I'm going to set this to say 1200 pixels wide, and this is the block object now, and only 300 pixels high. Let's go 300. There we go. And I'm going to use scroll bars only when necessary. So click OK. All right. And let's make sure we have enough. What did I do? No, it's not enough. I missed the number. Let's reset this to 1200. Not 120. There we go. That's much better. Okay. And then I'm going to put it back up into the cell right here. Okay. When we run the report, we will see now a scrollable table. Okay, a scrollable list. I use this a lot, especially in dashboards where it shows a number of different metrics and attributes that address individual cases. Here, it's so much easier just to scroll it right in front of you instead of kind of scrolling the page. So that's another way to do it. A lot of times, if your block is too big, make it smaller. It's okay. You can go down to say 800. All right, and then run it again, and that'll give us a little bit more tighter list. Okay, and then you can center that if you want. Basically, go in here to the not the block, but go into the table cell. Make sure it says table cell up here. Okay, you can actually look there. Don't be in the block. See, it says block right there. Change it to table cell, and then you can go and center it. So go to horizontal spacing alignment, and then click on center. All right, and that'll give you a better look into your report. It'll be all centered. Do the same thing for the chart, though. We want to make sure this is all symmetrical. So up here, one thing I want to do, another best practice, change the legend location to bottom. That seems to work better. All right, align bottom center. All right, and then don't forget to center the chart. That's the height. I want to do center, and then click run, and then you're going to get a better symmetrical looking report. Okay, you can see it's getting a little bit more professional as we add more steps to it. Looks a lot nicer and shows information regarding each individual storage device, right? Another thing I like to do, you can sort these by allocated capacity, used capacity. You can actually add used percent. There is no percentages here, okay, in your data mart. You have to create your percentages. And that is true whether you use SQL or whether you use drag and drop. So go into your query. So again, I'm going to go to report, go to query 1, and then drag a query calculation object over to your data items list. All right, click on your data items, and you're going to take use capacity, drag it over to your expression definition, hit the divided by symbol, and drag over total allocated capacity. Now you got one thing you got to do before you click OK, which I didn't do. That was a big mistake. Change the name to used percent or percent used, either way. All right, and then go back to your report, go over to your data items list, and drag the percent used object over there. Now remember, it doesn't know what you just did, so you're going to have to format it. So go over here to data format, select percent, click OK. Then when you run your report, it'll show you percent used. There you go. There's your percent used. Awesome. Looks great. All right. And then what we can do is we can actually sort in descending order, and that'll show you the storage devices that have the most used capacity. There you go. 93%. All right. Pretty cool. And there are so many different configuration choices you have here. One last one that I'll do before our time runs out is adding a conditional style. A conditional style is very powerful. Make sure you select the column where you want to place the conditional style. And I want to turn used capacity red if it's greater than 80%. Okay, so what you can do is click on Advanced Conditional Style, call it Used Percent, and then hit the plus, and then grab Used Percent, and then just say Used Percent is greater than 0.9, because it is it's not an integer, it's a float, it's a decimal. Okay, so you're gonna be sure it's the correct value here, it won't show up. Then you're going to click OK, and then come over here to the edit style, and you can change the background color to red, the foreground color to white, make it bold. Okay, and then when you run the report, just click OK. You're going to see anything over 90% highlighted in red, and there you go. That's a conditional style. Really cool stuff. All right. In the next session, what I'm going to do is add some traffic lights to this report. And we're going to continue to build this out so you see more and more use cases around layouts, all right? And then we're going to convert all of this to SQL, all right? And then eventually we'll get to some forecasting and some neat features that are built into the data warehouse, all right? So we're going to stop there. I'm almost at my time limit. We'll see you in the next session, and I look forward to showing you some more features and functions of Cognos.